What's going on, everyone? So, there's a lot of just word going around of a potential Scream series. Kind of talked about the news a little while back. And look, this is something that has been kind of thrown out for the last few years now, right? Ever since, Spyglass and everyone bought the Scream rights, started making the films, right? Scream 5, Scream 6, we're about to get Scream 7. They have talked and kind of hinted at, hey, we also want to do a series. And you're seeing more and more horror franchises being adapted into horror series. So it does make sense to bring back Scream the series, which I was a big fan of. I actually genuinely enjoyed, particularly the first two seasons. Third season seems to be really hit or miss with people. Some people just absolutely love the part three or the series season 3. Some people don't. I did like that Roger L. Jackson came back. I did like that, they went with the original classic Ghostface. But the problem, more than anything, and honestly is probably a big reason why I didn't like part 3 as much as I may have, was because they failed to deliver and finish the Brandon James story. And that was infuriating. So to me, if you're going to bring a Scream series back, I think you got to finish the Brandon James story first. Right. And look, I know I'm not alone in this because I've talked about this, year or so ago when, the news first came out that they were considering this. And the consensus was like, hey, yeah, they need to bring that back. Right. Like, quit with this, like, oh, we're going to do this, that, and the other, and blah, blah, blah. Right. No, you need to finish the Brandon James story. You need to finish that. Like, you can't just leave that on a cliffhanger and then just go, okay, well, everything's fine. And, again, I won't go too much into it because I don't want to, spoil it for people that haven't seen it. I mean, granted, if you haven't seen it yet, it's been long enough. But, I won't dive into, the details and the nitty-gritty of the series. But, yeah, the problem, and a lot of people kind of feel the same way of, hey, you kind of screwed us there, right? Yeah, we were all excited. We were looking forward to it. And then you just decided, no, we're not going to do it. And the worst part is they didn't even attempt to do it. Right? It wasn't like, the lead actress or something like that was like, no, I don't want to do it anymore or whatever. There was some falling out or nothing. No, they just, according to the cast, they just never called them back. They just were like, we're just going to go a different direction, which is crazy to me. Right? And all of the cast have talked about on numerous occasions that they would love to come back and finish that story. All of them. And there was even some kind of I guess buzz of that potentially happening because 5 of the cast members were in LA a year or two ago now. It's been a while, but they were all just there and they were taking pictures together, handing out, and everyone was like, oh, all the rumors of Scream series coming back and all the actors and actresses are all together. And it just turned out no, they just all happened to kind of be in the same area because they're all working actors and actresses. And they all just were kind of in LA at that time and were like, hey, let's go to the beach together because they hadn't seen each other in a long time. So it kind of just deflated us, right? But look, if I'm being honest, more likely than not, what they're going to do is tie it into the actual films. That's kind of the consistent rumor that keeps going around of they want to kind of use the almost if you were a fan of Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., right? Where, you'd have the movies and then the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was kind of its own thing, but it would kind of explain and fill in some pieces and some aftermath. Seeing that a lot with just Disney, right? And Marvel period, where it's you're building and growing characters through the series that then springboard and bleed into the actual films. And my thing is because one of the big problems that Marvel's having with that is they're making these movies that if you don't watch the series, then there's no point in watching the movie because you're not going to understand half of it, right? And it's just so much content that you have to consume. Now, obviously, Marvel's the extreme example because they do have, they're pumping out 15 movies, pumping out 2 movies a month and, 15 series and stuff. Now, I know that they're kind of taking it back a little bit, but with Scream, even if you got a film a year and a series a year, right? I think most people that are fans of the franchise will be able to kind of digest that and get into it. But still, not everybody's going to want to watch series, and not everyone has the time to watch the series, but they can go watch a 2-hour movie when they get some time, right? But I don't mind if it kind of has that tie-in, right? I want them to finish the Brandon James story, right? Like if you want to have the series that has a tie-in, then fine, do it after you've complete the Brandon James story, right? Because I do get, right, you could, like say the core four, for example, right? Like what was the aftermath and things that happened in between, right? Like you could fill in some blanks and tell some stories and build some characters, right? Or you could even have a series, with Kirby and she's going through all these Ghostface, or you could establish kind of building blocks that could go into the actual films. Like say a particular Ghostface, devises a plan or something, and you watch the series that leads into that, and maybe they do some unique thing where it's like the point of view of the ghost face, and you finally get the plan devised and they get taken out, and it's like you see a ghost face pick up the plans at the end of the series, and it's like and then Scream 12 or whatever has that, like, okay, sure, but I just, again, I feel like they did a great, like, with the first two seasons of the Scream series. I thought they did a really good job of just kind of, again, telling a story and establishing the characters, right? Like they had a good group of cast, and I thought that they did a good job of, like, we're like just storytelling and development and backstory, and kind of creating this anthology in the Screamverse, right? And it's something that I loved, and I just really enjoyed, right? Because like that's one of the problems that I feel Scream in general, which again is my favorite horror franchise. It's what I've built this channel on, right? So like I'm a big fan, but I'm also not oblivious to some of the flaws, right? Some of the faults. And I just feel like the more Scream films we've gotten, the further we've gotten away from just development of characters, right? And I thought, that's what I like about the idea of a series, that you can really kind of take the time to grow, establish, and build characters, right? Like Scream 96 was a masterclass on like how to properly kind of tell a story, build characters, have a beginning, a middle, and end, right? Like tell a good twist and story and all that, right? I thought the Scream series kind of followed suit with that. And again, it's easier. It's easier to kind of have an audience fall in love and kind of go through the rigmarole of the characters in a 8 hour, 10 hour sequence, rather than a 2.5 hour, right? Because you're trying to hit so many things in a film, where a series you can kind of draw it out a little bit, right? Now obviously you want to keep it engaged and entertaining, and kind of keep it within line of like what this is, which is a slasher film. But also the first two seasons, and like the series in general, but first two seasons in particular, I thought had some of the best kills in the entire franchise. I'm talking the films, all of it. If Even if you're not a fan of the series, right? Tell me that they didn't have some just like awesome kills. And I love that it wasn't just, yes, it was the knife, but there were things that were off the knife. And it's something that I've always been okay with Scream doing. Now, obviously, you don't want Ghostface just like start like have a movie where he's just blasting people or picking up a chainsaw and running through everybody. But like I don't mind certain kill, like improvising, being creative, right? Like some of the most memorable kills in Scream, right? Like CC Cooper, right? Like just getting thrown off the building, right? Like I think you could do some creative things, but it's like you took the time to grow, develop, and establish these characters to now just kind of pull the rug from us. It's like what was the point? Right? It was disappointing, right? No one likes when, a series that you enjoy gets canceled, but it wasn't that the series got canceled. They did it to themselves, which is what's crazy. And I get that they wanted the allure and the draw of Roger L. Jackson, and like, oh, look, hey, we got Ghostface now. But it's like you could have completed the series. It's like if you could have done that, and you could have drawn out another series. Guess what? It ended up not continuing after that, right? Like that was it. That was the end of the series. Why? Because people were pissed, right? People were upset because like you did such a great job of building these characters and the story, and creating this like anthology and in the world, and people were like, oh man, the Lakewood cast could bleed into Scream film, and like maybe we could get Sidney and some of the Lakewood characters, and it's just and I just feel like you really dropped the ball in that regard. So hopefully they listen to this video and they go, yeah, and hopefully, they see a abundance of comments of people that are like, yes, bring back the Lakewood cast, and maybe we can, cause a stir and get them to come back again. I like whatever they decide to do with the series, which I do think that they are going to do sooner rather than later. I do. I just they want to pump out as much Scream content as possible. I want to digest, as sure many of you do, as much Scream content as possible. But even beyond that, right? It's just like, no, I'm all for, as long as it's good, tells a good story, does the things that you want it to do, then like I'm fine, right? Like I just personally would really like to see the Lakewood cast return and kind of continue that story. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. I pass the question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you agree with me? Do you think like, yes, gotta bring the Lakewood cast back, right? Gotta finish the Brandon James story. You can't leave us kind of hanging the way you did. Do you think no? Like, hey, it is what it is. Another argument, I guess, is that we're so far removed, right? Like we're so far removed from the Brandon James story that like at this point, does it even make sense to do it? Does it even make sense to go back to it, right? So they probably aren't going to do that. Like if I had to bet on it, I'd bet they just kind of, what's done is done. And they kind of use the excuse of like, hey, we're new studio, we're new everything, like sucks to suck type thing, right? So if I'm being honest, they're not going to do it. I would be shocked at this point that if they did it, but I don't know. Personally, I want to see it happen. I want to know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Love to hear it. Let me know how you feel down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel. What are you doing? Hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.